Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, everybody. It is Freeform Friday. Glad that you are along. Sana wants to know if the Claw has bought me sneakers yet. Uh, is that some story that I have missed? I'm not sure what that's about. Didn't you tell me last week that you didn't even know about OpenClaw until I mentioned it, or am I misremembering? Have you dove in? Did you download it? Are you using it? Well, we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. Hey, for all of our partners, you should have received a Zoom link in your email inbox to our partners meeting tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time. That's my time. And we will talk about Matthew and no doubt the Olivet Discourse. Darren said he has a list, so that'll be fun. All of you, bring your lists. And then when we exhaust that topic, we'll talk about whatever you want to. So looking forward to seeing you all there. It's not too late. If you sign up today, I will send you a Zoom link, and you can join us tomorrow. There's a link in the show notes that you can go to become a partner and join us. I brought it up last week. Someone used it and had them buy it sneakers. Oh yeah. Very good. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. First, though, I want to talk about our 3 prayer requests. I don't have a lot to report on them, unless some of you do. Somebody sent me some updates earlier in the week, but it's been a fairly slow news week, it seems to me, and in particular, our 3 prayers. Number 1, and this is not necessarily in the order of importance or what I gave to you, but number 1 was the Minneapolis or Minnesota fraud. And we are asking the Lord to send the heavenly host and expose the fraud and bring the evil doers to justice, and use that as a door opening to exposing fraud all across the U.S. So keep praying for that. And again, I didn't see anything specific as far as movement on that this week. But just because it's not in the news doesn't mean things aren't happening. And certainly if the Lord Jesus is hearing our prayers and answering, then we can be sure that things are happening. So keep praying for that. Number 2 was that the Iranian regime would fall. And again, not much movement there that I saw, but I think things are happening. So keep praying for that. And number 3 is for secure elections here in the U.S., and the SAVE Act continues to get some momentum with some roadblocks, so pray for its passage and whatever else. I don't think that's going to be the end all be all. I think some other things have to happen, exposing past fraud and riling up the right people to do what we have to do to make sure that our elections are honest and have integrity. So anyway, keep praying for those things, and we'll see as the Lord answers those. Sana says Iran seems to be in the news a lot. At least my husband has been talking about it a lot. I mean, I saw a story that Trump said he may do some kind of a limited strike just to force them more to the table. And there's been some nuclear talks, but maybe he's got more access than aliens are in the news. Yeah, that's true. That's just silly, it seems to me. All right, so keep praying, and don't lose heart. And keep your eyes open for what the Lord is doing, and pray specifically for those things. All right, so let's talk about some tech. I tell you, we live in an amazing time. So the other night, my coffee grinder stopped working. And I took it apart and cleaned it and did everything I could do to try to figure out, and it just appears as though it's done. And I was thinking, my poor audience on the live stream is going to be very grumpy tomorrow, because if I don't get my coffee, the Grinch lives on. And my wife said, probably Amazon will have some that would get here by the morning. And she's right. I had a delivery by 6:15 a.m. and therefore you didn't notice if my grumpiness was due to lack of coffee or not. What a day where you just order it, and so many things are stored in warehouses close by that you can get it within 12 hours. Don't quickly move past that kind of thing. It wasn't very long ago that 2-day shipping was an extraordinary move by Amazon Prime. And then, uh, just being able to buy something online from the comfort of your home on a computer, like Christmas shopping, right? Very few people do any Christmas shopping in person anymore. Things are changing and changing for the better, and a lot of wonderful things there. So keep that in mind. Also, along that front, as far as technology, I think I mentioned last week very quickly. I had forgotten about it until the very end. But there's this little app called Typeless. I think it's a double entendre kind of thing. I would encourage you to check it out. It for me, it's great. I would much rather dictate my my texts, my emails, and now that we have so many platforms, it's crazy. Different messaging apps and so on. Anyway, I like to speak, and Apple has their dictation thing now that does a pretty good job of adding the right punctuation. I would say, it's maybe 75%. They'll throw commas in where they don't belong and that kind of thing. Well, Typeless allows you a little more time too. Apple will often time out if you stop to think about what you want to say. And of course, it's going to process and what's the word I'm looking for? Transcribe everything that you say, including your uhs and your ums and stuttering around and that kind of thing. Whereas Typeless is AI driven, and it will listen to everything you say and then very quickly put it into a nice paragraph, or it'll do bullet points spontaneously, all those kind of things. And so far, as I've been using it for 2 or 3 weeks now, it's pretty spot on in terms of the intent of what I'm saying. And it cuts out all the uhs and ums. And if I start a sentence and then stop and say something else, it'll generally eliminate the sentence that I started, unless it thinks maybe it was a rhetorical device kind of thing. So it saves me time. I think it saves me time. It certainly saves me having to type, which I don't like to do. And I've tested it on, 30 to 60 second little paragraphs as they've been kind of complex and I've thought through it. I don't know how long it'll go. It also, the latest update just the other day, it will translate into any language, and you can choose something in a different language and hit your button, and Typeless will transcribe it for you or translate it for you. And it'll also do some other AI stuff like quick searches. Anyway, the version I have is free, and so far I've not run into any need to pay for it. So it works on your phone, your iPad, and my Mac, and I would assume it's available for Android and other operating systems, but I don't know for sure. I'm a Mac guy, Apple guy, so that's all I use. Anyway, if you like that kind of technology, Typeless is its name, and I have found it very, very useful. There was something I was going to mention before I got into OpenClaw. It escapes me now. Anyway, so OpenClaw. Some of you know what it is, maybe just from last week. Terry says it's a poor choice for a name. Yeah, their naming has been an adventure. They first released it as Claudebot, but if you know about Anthropic and their AI, it's called Claude, Claude, and this was Claudebot, Clawd. Because I guess from the beginning, the guy who invented it, Peter Steinberger, is that his name? He was using as his logo a lobster, so lobster claws. So Anthropic said, please stop using Claudebot because people are confusing it with our Claude. So they changed it to Moltbot, and then a day or two later to OpenClaw. And the open part is it's open source. So everybody can see the code, and developers can add to it and that kind of thing, which introduces security problems, or at least vulnerabilities, but also just a whole lot of people working to make it better. So it's OpenClaw is what it's called. Dale says, is there an AI that will organize a supplement routine? Yes. Now, depending on what you want to do with that, any AI will do that. So that's actually a great question I'm going to assume that you don't know really what's going on here, how this works. Some of you may know vastly more than I do, and so please correct me where I'm wrong, and forgive my my elementary presentation here. But you know that I use Grok all the time for all kinds of things, but it's reactive, meaning it just sits there waiting for me to issue a prompt, and then it'll do the research or whatever. So if Dale, if you gave it a list of all of your supplements and said, organize this for me, how often should I take them? Or here I'm telling you, Grok or Anthropic or Gemini, whoever, I'm telling you how often I want to take them and create a schedule for me, it'll do that. And so there is a schedule that you can follow. A week or two ago, my wife had a day off and she had all these things she wanted to do. So she told Grok, here's my day off and here are all the things I want to get done today. Put them in an order and tell me about how long each one should take. And she basically just followed Grok's schedule for her all day. And then some things came up to interrupt it. And so she said, hey, Grok, this came up. I had to do this for an extra hour. I didn't intend to at this time. So take the rest of my day and redistribute it and that kind of thing. So it's great. Planning trips, planning vacations. I think I told you a couple of years ago when we took a trip to DC, I said, we're going to have one afternoon or one morning or something to spend in downtown because we were there for a wedding in Virginia. And so Grok planned an itinerary complete with places to rest because we had a newborn with us and all that. It was great. So Grok will do all that kind of thing, but it's reactive. It doesn't do tasks that you assign it, that kind of thing. So OpenClaw is not an AI model like Grok or Claude or Gemini or Copilot or whatever. What's the right word? What's the technical word? You might know. It's there is a technical word that is escaping me at the moment. It's an agent. Yeah, it's an agent. So it needs a model. Surprise, surprise. I have my OpenClaw. By the way, I named him Merlin, so I'll call him Merlin from now on. So I have Merlin using Grok as its model when it goes out and gets information, and the AI that it needs to do its things uses Grok. But so Merlin is my personal assistant. So for example, for those of you who are partners, I sent out an email yesterday about possibly doing some transcripts. And by the way, I didn't hear back from anybody. So I don't know if that just means it's not of interest, which is fine. Maybe you all are content with just watching the videos, but I get asked now and then for transcripts, and I know YouTube will transcribe the videos, but I have no control over when the processing is done for those, when the transcripts are available, and it's in a terrible format for reading. So I was just using this as a test case of something that I might want to put together. So what I did, yeah, my personal wizard, exactly. So what I did was told Merlin, in this folder every day, Monday through Friday, there will be a video file from my live stream. So at 10:30 a.m., I want you to go get that file, transcribe the video, and create a PDF and save it to the desktop, and then have Grok rewrite it in essay form. So I just got that finalized this morning because I kept running into hiccups, and so we'll see. So at 10:30 a.m., it is supposed to go find this live stream that I'm doing right now and transcribe it and create a PDF of it. So that's it. So Grok, if I were to take the YouTube transcript and put it into Grok and say rewrite it in essay form, it would do it. But again, I have to tell it to do it, and tomorrow I'd have to do it again, and the next day I'd do it again. Whereas Merlin will do it for me. So you can set up those repeating tasks and that kind of thing. Uh, and if you're on social media and follow anybody who's using it, it's amazing what they're getting it to do. There are so many just uses of AI. Side note: this is not OpenClaw, but I have some friends who are starting a property management company, and they sent me a link to test, or sent me a phone number to test their answering service, all AI, and it was great. It was obvious that I was talking to AI. The pausing and some other things made it clear this was not a human, but it was very pleasant and it wasn't distracting at all. And she had, I think Rosie is her name, she had learned everything on the website. So she had answers to all my questions and gave very clear and concise answers. And I was confident that she knew what she was talking about. And the one question I asked that she didn't know, she had a great response for, and offered to put me in contact with the owners, that kind of thing. And I'll just be candid. I would much rather talk to her than a human these days, because in my experience, probably 9 out of 10 customer service reps in any industry that I've talked to don't know all the information that I want them to know, and they're not very good communicators. Now, there's a few exceptions. There's the company we use to tune up our garage door every year and replace springs and that kind of thing. The gal there that answers the phone and deals with it, she's fantastic. But that's like the 1 out of the 10 that is better than most. So this is just where everything's going. And the thing about OpenClaw is you can create so much your own personal assistant, personal wizard, as you said. People use it to triage their emails and respond. You can set it to respond to certain kinds of emails. Basically, everything that can be done on a computer by a human, you can make OpenClaw do it for you. Now, it's not simple. It's not simple at all. Christian says, sounds like a great way to write a book from your playlist. Yeah, I've thought about that, but I'm not sure I'm going to write any more books. It sort of goes against my principles. Some people think my live stream is sort of like a talking book, but it's not how I see it at all. For instance, in a book form, I certainly, once I articulated my view of that section of Matthew 24, that I was sort of on the fly persuaded to a different position by Matt, by Online Shelby. A book doesn't lend itself to that. And they're just, at least for me, as I do it and follow others, they're very, very different. So anyway, I hear you, and I've thought about that too, but I'm not trying to add to the writings of men. I'm not, you know me, I'm not saying that all books, or even books about the Bible and Christian life, I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm trying to push people to really study the Word without consulting those other resources, but learning how to read it yourself. And I'm actually so encouraged because many of you have expressed this, that this is coming through. More than trying to convince you of my perspective, which is what a commentary does, and certainly what a systematic theology does. Here is the truth. Even more than that. Now, of course, there's an element of which I'm trying to do that, but more than that, I'm trying to equip you to understand, to study the Bible on your own, and to get it and not need. I mean, I'm trying to work myself out of a job here where you don't need me. Now, I hope you'll still come along and we can talk, and I want to hear your thoughts as well. But that's really what I'm after. So yeah, I'm not rejecting all books for all time or whatever. But anyway, Andrew says, my wife signed me up as a partner a few days ago, but I haven't gotten an email. Could you check your in and see if everything went through like it should? Andrew Brown. So is it under her name probably, or did she sign up your name? I will double check that. If you don't get it here in a little bit, feel free to send me an email lest I forget. Um, hang on. Hey Siri, remind me in 15 minutes to check on Andrew Brown.
Okay, Doug. I had to check on Andrew Brown for this morning at 10:05 a.m.
Ha, cool. She's good for something. Not very much, but she's good for something. I'm not going to say her name or she'll ask me again. Anyway, all right. So just so you know, if you decide to jump into an OpenClaw, has anybody here done this? I'm assuming not. I don't know why I'm assuming that, but um, it does take some technical ability. I have a little bit of experience with it, and I kind of have a mind geared for that kind of thing. So Grok actually helps me. In fact, learning. So I use Grok to create the prompts to tell Merlin what to do, which is kind of interesting. Um, if you've never worked with the terminal on your Mac, for instance, you've got to do that, and you can mess things up if you go in there and don't know what you're doing. I'm very cautious about that. I follow the instructions exactly. If I'm not certain, then I ask follow-up questions. And it doesn't just work out of the box. There's a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of trial and error, that kind of thing, which I enjoy. On the technology side, I haven't been this stimulated to learn and pursue something in a long time. Probably the most recent at this level was uh, back when our first child was born in the year 2000, and the internet was, just sort of taken off. Um, we moved here, had a child. Our parents were in St. Louis, and I thought, rather than trying to send them pictures, we didn't have a digital camera at the time. So rather than trying to send them pictures all the time, I will build a website and post pictures there, and then they can access them, and we'll update it, daily, kind of thing. And there weren't the easy website creators that we have now, so I taught myself HTML and built a website, from scratch to post our family pictures and videos and blogs, highlights, daily updates, that kind of thing. And that was invigorating. It was laborious, and it was a lot of work, but it exercised mental muscles that I hadn't exercised before. And this is similar to me. So I enjoy that kind of thing, and I'm willing to make mistakes, big mistakes, and have to spend hours and hours and hours correcting and learning from that. So if that's not the type of person you are, this may not be a good venture for you. However, if you have some of that ability and willingness to dive in, I just think there is a lot of stuff. I look at it for me, just with all the things that I'm trying to do, and if I had a small business, if you're a small business owner, this could take the place of lots of humans that you would want to hire to do a variety of things. And so I think it'll be profitable. And I think there's a market. I was talking to some folks the other day here about a market with this property management company, for instance, to develop the system where most of what we're doing will be automated, and then to go to other property management companies and sell the system to them. I think there's a market for that kind of thing. And this is what we've talked about in the past. Having used this for even just a week or less, and having used Grok for a while, I think the folks that say this are more likely to be correct than the alternative. I think it's not that every job is going to be killed by AI, but if you are in a white collar, if you spend most of your work on a computer, somebody who knows AI might take your job. So you might want to explore, if not, OpenClaw, and if you haven't jumped into some of the others, the models, you probably should. And I think for all of us, it's good to get some experience with this, because this is where everything is heading. So anyway, enough on that, but I just, maybe I'll give you more updates if you're interested as we go, as I learn how to use it. But it's pretty amazing tech, and it's just going to get better and better from here. All right, last thing I want to talk to you about, and this won't have to be long. I don't remember if I brought this up before, but how many of you have read the book Endurance by Alfred Lansing, about the Ernest Shackleton adventure? Just give me a thumbs up or a yes or no or whatever. If you haven't read it, I commend it to you, and especially for men, for young men, teenage boys, and for fathers to go through with your sons. So we read it. The guys in our fellowship read it earlier, late, I think December of last year, and then we've spent the last several weeks as we get together during the week to discuss it. And first of all, just the story itself. We haven't talked about this here, have we? To any length? I seem to remember mentioning it and being amazed at it. Sona says no, but I believe you brought it up before. I didn't spend much time with it, did I? Well, even if I did, we finished our discussion. It's worth a little bit of time here. If you don't know the story, the basic story is back in 1915, I believe. This man, Ernest Shackleton, who had earned quite a reputation as an explorer and adventurer down in the Antarctica region, decided he wanted to take a crew and they were going to transverse Antarctica by land, on foot. And he pulled together a team and they went after it, and they didn't get too far into their venture when they got stuck in the ice. They had to abandon ship. And now they are in the, how do I describe it? They're on floes. They're in the middle of the ice. I forget, 26 of them, something along those lines, 24, somewhere in there, of these men. They have 3 little boats that they got off the ship that they dragged with them. And they are, in danger of the flow that they're on, the ice, berg ice, I don't know what you call it, the slab of ice that they are on. They're in danger of it breaking apart, and they'll just fall in the water and drown, freeze to death. But there isn't a gap big enough for their boats on the water to try to go anywhere. And that's what they're waiting for, hoping that they get an opportunity to get in the boats and go before the ice cracks and they die. And so I thought I knew the story. I'd heard a little bit about it. I had no idea. I may have mentioned this before, but I am appalled that no one has made a mini series. That this one of the great directors has not made a mini series. This would be one of the most compelling dramas of all time done right. And I don't think you can do it in a movie. It needs to be a series, because a movie you couldn't do it in a couple hours. It needs more episodic approach than that, I think. But I thought I knew the general story. Put it this way, after several chapters in, they were in such dire situation, I thought, okay, I'm obviously just about done, because either they're going to die or they get rescued here. There's not really anything worse that could happen. And I happened to look at the table of contents and realized, oh, I've hardly just begun. And every chapter ended, and by the way, Alfred Lansing is a great writer. Every chapter ended when you think, okay, it can't get any worse than this. And the next chapter, it gets worse. And you read that and you're just exhausted and worked up, and it's intense. And you think, okay, we have to turn a corner here. And it doesn't. It gets worse. And everything you think could go wrong, nope, you didn't see that coming. That went wrong too. And it's just a fantastic story. And it reads well, reads like a novel. In fact, if you, one of our guys said, if you didn't know this was truth, you would be absolutely convinced it was a novel, because you'd think there's no way this could happen in real life. So we had some great discussions as guys about leadership. Shackleton is, a rare leader in his wisdom, knowing when to take the right risks. In other words, for example, they got off the first main flow just before it did split and it would have killed everybody. And yet there was there were people pushing to get off sooner, and he thought, no, we can't survive if we get off of this. And so he had that wisdom and that knowledge and that just ability to take the risk at just the right time, and it was the right risk, and it worked. So that kind of thing, as far as he knew his craft, he knew what he was doing, and he had already developed a relationship, already developed a reputation for this. In fact, that's why these guys were willing to go with him. Someone had said, there's a quote in the book, and I'm going to butcher this, but something like, if you want to, I'm gonna totally mess it up. If you want to, go through if you want to, I don't know. The second part, I can't remember the first part. The second part was, but if you're in a situation where, it is desperate, then get on your knees and pray for Shackleton. He'd already made himself a reputation of surviving hard things, but nothing like this. I mean, this was unparalleled. But we talked about leadership and the way that he kept them together when every day for 2 years, by the way, this went on for 2 years, how he kept them from turning on each other and being overwhelmed with despair, where they would just give up. He kept his eye on the ones who were struggling the most, who would then sort of infect the rest of the group with discouragement. At one point, he took a crew off, and I'm going to be kind of vague in some of this because I don't want to give it away. If you haven't read it, you need to read it to the end and just be in awe of how it ends. But he took a crew, and they went, and there was one guy that was not going to be particularly useful on this small group that left, but his attitude was so bad, he knew if he left them with the larger group, he would destroy them. He would just create such animosity and despair that he said, it's better for you to take up a space of the few of us that are going here where I can keep an eye on you than infect the rest. So that was again, great wisdom. It was amazing as us as men to talk through this, how in this desperate situation, especially when they're on this slab of ice, they don't have a lot to do and a lot of places to go, but they had jobs they had to do to survive. Whenever they were blessed enough to come upon a group of seals, they had their jobs to go catch them and kill them and cook them, that kind of thing. And they just all had their jobs to do, and they did them, and he organized them well. So many examples of amazing leadership by Shackleton. And then for the crew, for the rest of them, how they had different skills and giftings and temptations, and they encouraged one another and held the group together through hard times. Like, I can't imagine for 2 years, every day, waking up when, you've had just a little bit of sleep, and it's, on a warm day, it's, 16 or 20 degrees above zero. You're soaking wet 24/7. They had to sleep in crouched positions. How do you persevere in that situation day after day after day? And one of the guys last night said, one of his takeaways is, it's not that bad. Meaning, on our worst days, it's not that bad compared to that. So for me, it's a great story on so many levels. So I commend it to you. And again, especially for men and for young men, and if I had known this story, I certainly would have read it with Gabe many years ago, and we would have talked through, just as a man, what do I take away from this? So I would commend that to you. All right, that's all I got today. Appreciate your coming along. Again, partners, we got our partners meeting tomorrow. And for the rest of you, we'll see you back here on Monday to get back to Matthew. Have a great day and a great weekend, and we will see you all later. Grace and peace to you.